everybody. I've had the honor to know Doug and Michelle for a number of years, both professionally and personally. What I'd like to talk to you today about is just some bullet points associated with some of the experiences that I've had as a local architect who works on these homes fairly regularly. The structural makeup of the homes, very, very basic. Slab on grade, we've got 4x4 posts and walls that come up and meet the 3x6 roof rafters. And then in this case here, we've got the decking, the roof decking. It's 2x roof decking with insulation on the top. Not all the homes had a whole lot of insulation, which we'll get to in a second. That's one of the difficulties of these homes and how to actually live them. Balancing that heat and cool within the home is often very difficult because they installed the forced air heating. So when you start to modify the homes, there isn't a lot of different ways to actually get the ducts to move into the new spaces without either exposing them or going up on the roof and over and down in. That becomes a little challenging for some of the waterproofing, as well as some unsightly ducts. I'm sure you've noticed. Insulation. There's a few different options that we've done. One is in between the beams. We will install 3.5-inch high density rigid insulation. What that does is it allows us to control some of the heat gained from within the home and keep the coolness within, and vice versa. What it does do though, and this was part of the challenge, is it reduces the overall look and feel of the beams itself. So it starts to detract from some of the simplicity of the architecture that Cliff May had developed long ago. It's very successful, but then you kind of weigh the aesthetics relative to what you want to see. In this case, we got the tongue and groove. You come in, we would ordinarily put a new layer of tongue and groove that hides the insulation, or we do something a little bit more modern that could be some plywood that's more decorative, clean looking and simple. The other option that we've done is actually build a secondary roof on top of the existing. That allows us to get good solid foam insulation or rigid up there. Reduces a lot of heat gain before it even comes in the house, so it's a lot more successful from an environmental standpoint. That though increases the profile of the roof. So if you look at it from a remodeling standpoint, what's going to be more important? What's the value in both of them? Neither of them are very inexpensive from a cost standpoint, but something that we really kind of look at. When we come back in, we look at a lot of the detailing at the eaves, and we really try to mimic everything that we can. We have, in some instances, ramped the roofing up to the insulation so that from the profile outside, it looks like the original character, and then as it comes back very, very slightly, then we start picking up more of the insulation within the wall area of the roof. So that works too. Structurally, the homes are very difficult to recreate nowadays with today's codes. Post and beam is a fun architecture. It's beautiful, it's exquisite, very simple and clean. Wood is difficult to get to work with today's codes. So we would end up needing to go with some steel members here and there. And some of the original homes, they had posts within, right over here next to the Mistolite glass, you'll see some of the gray, dark gray post. The square edges of these members are very characteristic to the style of architecture back in the 50s and 60s. Today, our wood is eased. The edges are different. To me, that's a big deal. So what we do is we end up specifying wood that's specially ordered with those square edges to the 3.5-inch by 3.5-inch dimension so that it fits in all the other structural members. Also what we can do is you'll notice that there's no hardware. The steel and connecting buckets that you would normally see at conditions at the roof, where posts meet beams and things like that. Most structural engineers, they want to come right in and throw a big giant bucket that's metal that's got bolts going through it, and you look at it, it's just not right for the style. So Simpson, there's a company out there, a few different companies that do concealed hardware that hide all within the confines of the members themselves. So we introduced those. We work very closely with structural engineers in order to keep the architecture the way we want it and how Cliff May would have wanted to see these homes transformed. Electrical, that's also one of the hard ones here. The pendant light here, this was drilled through the beam in order to get the electrical into the light fixture itself. Across the back here, we've got some track lighting. Track lighting is very common in these homes because you can come in from a side, paint the wires out white, whatever the ceiling is, and conceal it. It works quite well. We can generally get a lot of light from these conditions. If we've got the rigid insulation or some other insulation bay that we've developed for other reasons, we can then chase some of the electrical down and hide it so that you don't end up with conduit and other electrical pieces all over littering up the ceiling. Again, trying to keep the simplicity of the roof and the overall look and feel. The windows, they're all custom made. From back in the day, everything was custom made, built to fit on a 5-foot module. All the members throughout, the Cliff May module is a 5-foot, basically 5'4" So when the windows need to be upgraded to today's standards, they got to go from the single glaze plate glass to a dual glaze tempered glass generally. A lot heavier, a lot wider. The profiles change. So there's only a few different companies in the local area that are really good and adept at creating or recreating the window conditions with the dual glaze that meet the Tile 24 energy codes that we have today. Because most of these homes are glass. You want to keep that vocabulary so that when you come in, you really get that connection to the outside, blurring the lines within the interior and exterior space.